I was contacted about a week or two ago by Gamdias to review one of their coolers. At the time, I was under the assumption, as I was told, it would be the Choine P1A 120, which is obviously a 120mm rad, which would have fit perfectly in any one of the cases I had. To my surprise, when the box finally reached me, they sent me their flagship cooler, a 360mm rad, the Choine P1A. The box packaging isn't bad at all. In fact, I prefer it to the packaging I've become used to from AIO coolers from Cooler Master, where they kind of got that 8-carton cardboard on the inside. Really throws me off. Thermaltake also does this, I've noticed. The fans are your standard fare 120mm static pressure fans. Perfect for anybody who's looking for RGB. They're not too loud, and the RGB isn't too bad, but I guess I can get into that later. You can receive 3 of these in the box, obviously, for a 360mm. There's obviously a remote control, so you can change colors on the fly if you so choose. This is also compatible with, I believe, Asus, MSI, and Gigabyte motherboards that support illumination integration. So if you happen to have one of those, this might be pretty cool for that, simply for the fact that it's going to be completely and utterly coordinated, which is nice. It's capable of working with a multitude of motherboards. Whereas if you have like Corsair, I don't think a Corsair RGB thing would hook up with MSI, but I could be wrong. It comes with enough parts and peripherals to make sure that it fits almost any LGA 150 type of socket and many AMD sockets. I believe if it supports AM3, it'll also support AM4. But don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure, but I have used Ryzen CPU coolers on AM3 motherboards, so it is possible. The design isn't bad either, in all honesty. It's not mind-blowing, but the simplicity there makes you think, I searched the box some more for the instruction manual, which was not to be found. Therefore, I had to go on the Gamdias website and navigate through the download section to find the user's manual. This will be useful because you need it to figure out just exactly what the hell you're doing. And thankfully, you can look at it on your phone with a Dabe reader. As I stated before, I was ill-prepared for a 360mm rad, and I was hoping there was some way I could jerry-rig this thing into the case. It couldn't be done unless I broke the case itself to do so. Once again, the simplicity of the back bracket. I also like the cooling plate. It's pretty big. It's almost big enough to support a Threadripper CPU, I would say. It also comes with thermal paste. I didn't feel like trusting their thermal paste, so I went with what I had on hand. This technique I call the rice bead mixed with, now I have to wipe the thermal paste off the nozzle of my little applicator. Oh, it looks lovely. That's professional work right there. Master craftsmanship. Now, when you yank out the remote and you check the box, you'll find it doesn't come with a battery. You'll need a C2025. Thankfully, I have a few of them because many of my peripherals happen to support these type of Bluetooth remotes for RGB. Ironically, I honestly believe these come from all the same Chinese manufacturer. I will say it sucks it doesn't come with a battery, but at least they give you thermal paste. If I had to choose between the two, I'd rather have the thermal paste than the battery. Overall, the RGB is adequate at best. Honestly, I don't find the RGB to be that nice, in the sense of the transitions between colors and effects isn't clean or smooth enough for me. Sometimes it's very abrupt, like it shuts off and then wham, back on. And it can be slightly jarring if you care about those sort of things. But I have to nitpick something here because I have to be honest about it. But on the other hand, most AIO coolers don't give you RGB unless you're dealing with Thermaltake. If you buy any AIO cooler from Corsair for that matter, you're not going to get any RGB fans with it. I also have to point out that the Choine P1A 360R and every AIO cooler from Gamdias comes with the, and I quote, leak-free Teflon tube, which makes liquid evaporate at an extremely low rate. The tube remains anti-explosive despite high pressure and extreme heat triggered by cooling processes. From what I understand, Teflon tubes can be susceptible to breaking in time if poorly handled, if you know what I mean. Like if you really abuse it or bend it in a way it's not supposed to be bent, you can possibly lead to leaking later on in the cooler's lifespan. This did sort of worry me, and I consulted someone who was a bit more knowledgeable in this than me, and he confirmed the sort of slight fears I had. But he also assured me that if you maintain this, as in you don't abuse the tubing, you'll probably be fine. It also comes with a braided outer cable, which I think is a nice touch. You only really see that in like a Corsair H150i, which is their flagship cooler. And I'm saying this because I have an H105 and I don't have that braiding on the outside. Overall, this product is better than I assumed it would be, and I was very hesitant with it because I don't know much about Gamdias. The most I know about them is they have RGB chairs that I've seen at like EVO last year, like some pro esports players were sitting in their RGB chairs, and I was like, huh, I don't know where those came from, and that's about all I've seen of them. You can do some searching yourself, but mainly Gamdias seems to have the most reviews only on their chairs, so it's hard to say what people make of the AIO coolers. On top of that, I don't believe they've hit the market yet in the US. They're kind of hard to track down, and even now I don't know what the price of this is. I have asked what the price would be for this, but I have yet to receive a reply. I've looked around, I've looked on Japanese sites, Argentina, I've looked in Italy. Japan seems to have more stuff than anywhere else, but honest to God, I can't read kanji to save my life, and I'm sure few of you can either. So at this point, I don't have a price for you. I will admit though, once again, though I am apprehensive with this because I don't know much about the company and few people are willing to take risks with companies they don't know, that this product is better than I perceived it to be. After doing some testing in games, I probably should have tried some more CPU intensive stuff like Blender and whatnot, but I was under the assumption that most likely anyone who is using their computer as a workstation for hard rendering or 3D rendering probably would not buy something from a company they don't know much about. It's just a sad truth. I'm not trying to be a jerk or an asshole or anything, but that is the way it is. So a company that doesn't have a great or a huge reputation, no one who's really doing hard work on their computers is going to risk something they're unsure of. Point being, I stuck to video games, the ones that I could get working. As you can see, the test bench consists of a GTX 770, 2GB model. The CPU inside is a 4690K i5, overclocked at 4.2 GHz on all cores at 1.2 volts. I figured this would get me the best results as far as gaming and overclocking in gaming, as far as anyone who would care, because an i5 performs just about as well as an i7 4790K in this instance of this generation of Intel CPUs, and it's all I had at my disposal. I found while idling at 4.2 GHz, the CPU on a stock cooler found itself at 47 degrees Celsius and often got as high as 55 degrees Celsius when you opened an application or opened a web browser or, I don't know, looked at malware bytes. You know, just looked at it. It says, oh, we got an update for you. You just look like, do I want to update? And then the heat would shoot up. The highest I saw on the Gamdias at idle at 4.2 GHz was 29 degrees Celsius, occasionally dipping to 30 degrees Celsius. While playing GTA 5, once again, with the stock cooler, I saw temperatures as high as 80, but I rounded it off at 77. That seemed to be a good point. On the Gamdias again, 41 degrees Celsius. Monster Hunter, 79 degrees Celsius, as high as 88. But I figured 79 is like where it hovered at the most in most intensive areas. Once again, Gamdias, 41 degrees Celsius. Please never mind my annoying dog. Assassin's Creed Unity, 61 degrees Celsius on the stock cooler. On the Gamdias, 41 degrees Celsius. It seems to be that that is the highest this has gotten in my experience. The Witcher 3, 56 degrees Celsius. Gamdias, 37 degrees Celsius, surprisingly, lower than I assumed. Tomb Raider, the 2013 version. I should have tried to install the more recent version on the PC, but it was out of room. 50 degrees Celsius, 30 degrees on the Gamdias. It's pretty much the same across the board. The highest I saw as far as temperatures might have been 43 for a short stint, as in like boop, 43 back down to 41. Everything else is self-explanatory. Thus far, it seems to prove to be a decent product. The only drawback is the remote control LEDs. It's not great, and all the other cool effects I could only find in auto mode. I don't know if there's any software because I couldn't find it on the website. I did try and benchmark other games, but unfortunately there seemed to be an issue with the testbench PC. I'm not quite sure if it's the GTX 770 or what, but I found some of my Shadowplay videos came up completely and utterly destroyed, completely corrupted. I don't know what happened, and I didn't care to figure it out because I felt I had spent enough time working around the issues I had at hand. Most of my time was spent trying to get the cooler hooked up, if you will, simply due to the size I wasn't prepared for, and the case I had on hand was not built for anything other than a 120mm. But it's a welcome surprise, as it gives me a chance to mess with something a bit bigger, a 360mm rad versus a 120. And I will say, surprisingly, I found that the temperatures with the Gamdias was lower than my H105. I felt something worth saying. Maybe it's because, you know, obviously it's a 360mm rad versus my 240 in my workstation, but still, I would assume that something from a flagship company would do a lot better versus a company I've never really heard much about. So it might be something to take note in. I'm still on the fence on their products simply because I don't know much about them. I did go through the hassle of trying to abuse the AIO cooler to see if any leaks or anything would happen on purpose. I also left the machine running for prolonged periods. I let the machine running for around 3 days actually, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. Then I'd turn it off overnight or so, and then I'd crank it back up as soon as I was on, and I would leave video games running for prolonged periods. Like I would let GTA 5 run for 4 hours or so. I let Assassin's Creed Unity run for 4 hours or so in the background while I worked on other things. I did this on purpose to see if the temps would fluctuate. I did this on purpose to see if the cooler itself would fail, because the last thing I want to do is talk about a product and someone check it out simply because they respect me and something goes wrong. As I stated before, I don't know much about this company, so take everything I said as a grain of salt. And since there isn't much to go on and it hasn't hit the US market yet, you know, it's I don't know what to make of the situation. And on that note, I should get the hell out of here. I did this video because I felt it would be a nice sort of change from what I usually do. I hope nobody minds. And I understand if you do. Don't worry, it won't be a regular thing. I might do 1 or 2 more reviews in the next 2 weeks, and it'll be normal as always. You know, this will just be peppered in the background. You know, people can ignore it if they choose. And on that note, I should get the hell out of here. Rate, comment, subscribe only if you so choose to. If not, to hell with it. I can't expect anyone to give more of a shit than me in the age of apathy. But remember, the more of you that do follow me, the less likely it is for YouTube to bully me like they used to. I mean, I'm still getting messages in my inbox. We've reviewed your thing manually. You're fine. Oh, you talked about Amaranth. This is limited ad reviews because it's not family friendly or something like that. And I'm like, well, of course it's not family friendly. It's Twitch thoughts. Oh, well, whatever. I'm out of here, guys. Oh, and for those interested, this will be the last time I do any more plugs because I feel like a sleazebag doing it. There are t-shirts now available. My artist is running the whole site, the whole setup. So if you ever wanted a t-shirt, feel free to check it out. I know I'm going to buy 1 or 2 because Lord knows I can't get one for free, but it doesn't matter. You know, I don't care. And yeah, thank you everybody who's here checking this out or made it this fucking far.
All you need is smiles, lots and lots of smiley smiles. Your sweet pink mouth goes north, not south, and just smile. All you need is smiles. Hey, smile.